Hello. In the series Karma, Destiny and Choice, we are looking at a number of subjects that are of interest to humanity as a whole in order to deepen their understanding of this all-encompassing law of karma. Today we will be looking at whether one can have karma with God. It is my pleasure to welcome Sister Denise back in the studio with us. Hello and welcome.
Hello Magla, thank you.
We have karmic accounts with each other as human beings. Some have karma with animals, we have karma with things, and we have karma with Mother Nature. So, God, do human beings have different types of karmic accounts with God?
Interestingly, yes.
I don't think that many have considered that from that aspect. Because we live down here, we don't think of our account with God. So give us more information about this.
It's very much connected with what your concept of God is. There are people who say God is omnipresent. If you subscribe to that idea, God will take that as an insult. Because God will say, well, whatever is omnipresent is vices, human suffering, and how can you say that that is God? So it means that you're insulting me, which means that you're having negative karma with God.
I find that a bit strange because the way omnipresence is sold, or shall I say believed, by I don't know, 1 billion, 2 billion people on the planet, is praising God. And it's phrased in different ways to different people. Some believe that wherever I am, God is always with me. Others believe that God lives in my heart. That is their version of omnipresence. You know those three words, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. It's praise. That is their intent. How is this bad karma? And why? What's the message here?
Let me go into a little bit more detail about what would be positive and negative karma. I just gave one instance of how God would respond to that, how you could come into a negative karma with God. People who are interested in punya, you remember I talked about punya, which is very, very pure positive karma. So people believe that if they give donations in the name of God, then that will be very, very pure karma and God will reward them. So people who are devotional, especially in India, they want to come into karmic account with God that's positive, and then God will reward them. Because if God's going to be the rewarder and punisher, then if you do something against God, that would not be good. And then God would say, okay, you do something in the name of God, but you cannot give to God because God is the bestower. So you give something in the name of God, that means you're having an indirect positive karma with God, which means from the calculation side, you do 1, God gives you back 1. Now, in the period of time when God is particularly active, which we believe to be the current time, where God is very active in the work of finishing off everybody's negative karma, as being the purifier, providing everyone with wisdom in his form of the giver of the third eye or the giver of the nectar of knowledge. And God is in the process of establishing heaven on earth. This is what God is most famous for, creating paradise. So if you would participate in that work and give your time, energy, money, talent, etc. directly in that work of God, then the consequences of that karma is one for hundreds of thousands. So having karma with someone is like having a positive investment with them or a negative investment with them. What you want is to have direct give and take with God. And when you do this, it becomes possible for you to have indirect give and take with people, places and things. Philosophy of karma is very deep in this aspect. Now, the other thing that God is famous for, along with creating heaven, creating a kingdom. So the two very extraordinary inheritances that you can take from God by entering into a relationship of being fully the child of God, the knowledge from God that you take into your being, your head, transforms into the crown of jewels, which means wisdom, which is of course within. And when you follow the directions of God, it's all about pure karma. And so you get a crown of light, which is the crown of purity. So when God creates his school for teaching all these things to people, he says, okay, you come to this school, you learn these things, and depending on you, depending on how far you want to take it, it is possible for you to take this from me. And so you can go for it if you want. You know, I mentioned earlier, the high quality soul has love for God, love for humanity. You remember that?
Yes, yes, I do.
So a person who has love for humanity, they will work with God because God has love for humanity. So they become like partnering with God for the care of humanity. And love for God, they engage deeply with God, and then this brings them so close that whatever is the greatness of God, all of that is something that you can draw gently into yourself. So you become more and more godlike and less in the human condition.
In one of your initial answers, you said your karma with God depends on one's concept of God, how you see God. Almost everyone who has some type of connection with God sees God in a physical form. They call it God, they call him or her God, but they see God via a physical form. And then there are those who believe that I cannot get to God except via this human or this human and this human. There are those who believe that and who live by that for life. So how does that, what is the karmic return of that?
There you have an indirect karma with God because it's through Jesus Christ or through someone they believe in. So you have more of a direct karma with that prophet soul and indirect with God. So it's one for one. Going back just a moment to the omnipresence idea, although people think that this is very high esteem of God, but then God will say, but that means you don't really think that I'm someone, you think I'm something. So you're debasing God from a being to a thing, because a being can't be everywhere.
You've spoken enough about soul consciousness and body consciousness for the audience to understand by now that when a soul is body conscious, when someone is body conscious, their belief is that I am what I see in the mirror. So because we think that of ourselves, that's how we see God as well?
Not really. People become conscious of the energy of matter.
Mm.
And they think that is God. because that is everywhere.
Okay.
There are some religions, like in Christianity, they will say very often God is spirit. And they will usually address God as someone rather than something. But then it becomes compromised by the idea of immanent and transcendent, which is a Christian concept. So immanent is another word for omnipresent. And transcendent means beyond the material. And again, this refers to this energy of matter that people have detected, because it is still physical, and thought that that is the energy of God, it's the energy of the creation. But God is outside the machinery. You know this expression, Deus ex machina?
Mm-hmm.
So the machina is the material world. So if Deus ex machina means God exists outside the material world, and so the material world is other than God. And what we study in Raj Yoga is that God is distinct. The human souls are specific, always there, eternal, immortal, you're always you. And then matter. And there's an interplay. Like we're talking about the interplay between karma and destiny and choice.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an interplay between God and human souls and matter. It's a different interplay.
Can one incur the wrath of God?
Not really, but...
Okay, I want to qualify my question even further. When things go well with us, we thank God for it. However, when we don't pass a critical exam, when we lose someone we love, when we're involved in a near-fatal accident and lose an important digit or limb, it has become common to blame God and say, why are you punishing me? Or why has God abandoned me? Or what have I done to deserve this? But you're addressing all of those comments at God.
This is because people have actually confused the energy of the law of karma with the energy of God. And the law of karma is the reward and punishment for your karma, the good and bad results. So it's a machinery, it's not a being, you see. So the law of karma is definitely omnipresent, it definitely rules everything in the material world, but God is something different. And, you know, many people address God as that, because if God isn't giving the reward and punishment for action, then what does he do? You know, if he doesn't do anything, then he's probably not there.
So we gave God a vocation?
Well, we gave him a vocation which is different from his actual vocation.
Right.
He does have a vocation, and the vocation of God is purifying the souls and matter that has become impure. So there is a purging aspect, and there's also a re-energizing aspect. And people find this completely out of range to comprehend the difference, because a very subtle difference, between the workings of the philosophy of karma and God purging the contamination from souls. Because from the point of view of perception, you cannot tell the difference. So you have to know. And you cannot know by observation, you know by being informed. And this is God, the teacher, who says, I will tell you everything, but it's very subtle, so you have to listen very carefully. Still, there are very few who can grasp the difference between the laws of karma, that's an automatic process, natural laws. In yoga, if you do very good yoga, you make contact with God, you pull the energy of God into your being, and this will open up the gates of your subconscious, and it will cause the impurities of your subconscious to erupt through your body or through your mind. And when that happens, you have to open yourself mentally and physically to let that corruption, that alloy in the soul, it's also been called, just let it burn in the fire of your love for God. And this is how you get purified. It is said to be a settlement of karma through yoga, as compared with settlement of karma through suffering. So when you engage with God in this way, you effectively deactivate the normal process of the functioning of the law of karma, because you do this through your relationship with God. And this is virtually incomprehensible to people, but it is how it is explained. Then the second thing that God will do is reverse the effect of entropy on matter.
How does he do that?
When you become a conduit for the energy of God, that energy that passes through you goes into the world of matter through your vibrations and everything, and it alters the frequency and brings the pieces of matter back into a state of integrity. And this all happens very invisibly because it's vibrational. And so only somebody who knows how to connect with God can be like a string that resonates, and you're connected with the earth and with God, and that resonance passes through you, so you become a conduit for that, or an instrument for that. It's all very invisible, because it's just you become still, and you go on to the same frequency as God, and then that causes the frequency of the earth to be also altered through you, because your contact with the earth changes the vibration of the earth, because that energy is passing through you.
Sure, that sounds extremely powerful. I want to take us back to another aspect. How does one not create negative karma with God? You used omnipresence as one example. Is there anything else that us humans do or say or think that that can create negative karma with God? And Sister Denise, I'm thinking of the individuals in the world who are agnostics and atheists. What is the karma of that?
I think that it's only people who are actually in relationship with God who can have positive or negative karma with God. Because if you are in relationship with God and you know, then the negative effect of your negative karma is pretty enormous, just as the positive effect of your positive karma is pretty enormous. You know, God will tell you, okay, I am the creator, this world is my creation, and the entire creation, the play, the drama of happiness and sorrow, success and failure, all of this day and night, dark and light, he says it is perfect. And if you comment on it to say that it's not perfect, that becomes a negative karma with God. And only somebody who knows this stuff really well can be called to account for that, because they know. The consequence of that is that all of the energy of God that they draw in by doing the right thing, they lose it all by doing the wrong thing. Such an individual has to be very careful.
Heavy lies the head that wears the crown of responsibility.
I think something like that, yes, yeah. So you can understand that in terms of karma with God, nobody will be called to account for doing something against God, thinking that it's not against God, because their intention is, as you mentioned earlier, praise. They say it out of love. Only when a person has really learned properly all the details can they be called to account.
Human beings tend to refer or think of God as being the creator.
Yes.
And yet, you say that we're immortal. Which of those words are true?
It's all true, but you have to interpret it meaningfully. For example, bringing you into existence is not the meaning that God means by the word creator. It's more corresponding to, you know, if somebody's a teacher, high quality teacher, and they make somebody into a virtuoso musician or dancer or whatever, so they make that person. They don't bring them into existence, but they make them qualified, they make them great. Creation in that sense.
Relationships with God take on many forms, and people all across the globe regard God as being their mother and their father. What is the return of that?
If you say, God is my father, the implication of that relationship is there's an inheritance and also an identity as social status. These are given to you by your father. Your mother nourishes you and lets you understand about your father, so that you understand your father, what he does, who he is, and correspondingly who you are. So when you have that relationship with God, mother, father, friend, teacher, and guru with the meaning that God is the one who takes you to nirvana. This is really the ultimate purpose of a guru, to liberate you, to take you to the world of light. And so in these 5 very predominant relationships, you need to fulfill the implications of love of those relationships, which means that you live in remembrance of God. That means you study, you apply the study, you refer to God, you take advice from God, you spend time with God, you converse with God, all of this, so that your relationship is more and more direct with God and more indirect with people, so that whatever people do to you, which may or may not be unpleasant or negative or whatever, because you're connected with God, doesn't make much difference to you one way or the other, because you're not engaged, you're not attached, you're not suffering. You may get pain, but you're not suffering because you have God, you see. So it's a transfer of your deep connection from people to God, from things to God, from places to God, like that.
There are, give or take, 7.5 billion human beings on the planet. Does God love each and every one, including the ones who conduct themselves in an unlovable fashion?
The way God loves is like this. God is reciprocal. So you love God, God will love you reciprocally. So effectively God loves everyone, but people who do actions that are against what God stands for, they will not be able to experience that love or receive that love, so they remain deprived because of their karma. Somebody who does the right thing without knowing, but does the right thing, they will receive a lot. Someone who really knows and really fulfills that relationship, they will receive tsunami of love. So there is a great variation, but it's a lot to do with your karma, your recognition, your love for God.
Thank you. Thank you. So there you go. Can one create karma with God? Does one have karma with God? And also, how to draw the maximum from God. A very deep and powerful message. And I hope that you could use what was shared in today's chat to improve the quality of your relationship with the Supreme Soul. Take care. Goodbye.